Good evening. Good day. Hi, Chris.
Hi, 𝐤𝐥𝐿.
Let us wait a little bit for the people joining our webinar. Today, we will be talking about daily production readiness. So actually, I believe these are your favorite topics, especially while working with the suppliers. Let's wait for people who are joining. Yes. In the meanwhile, everyone who is already with us, we would love to hear about you. From where are you? Maybe you can write your name and from where are you simply with us?
Yeah, while we're waiting, it's been a while, 𝐤𝐥𝐿. How long has it been? Maybe is it 6 months since the last webinar? It's been quite some time.
Yes. Last time it was in June. We met together in June with our dear QualityWise network for the webinar, and it was Zero Defects Direction. So it's also quite well appreciated. 300 people together. Very nice. Slowly, we have here some people. We have, oh gosh, Toronto. Far away from us. Chris is located in Glasgow. I'm located next to Warsaw in Poland. So Toronto is far away. Who else is with us? Let's wait a little bit. Today we're streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, of course. However, there will be definitely about 10 seconds shift between different platforms. So we may receive your answers with some delays, but slowly we see that we have Coventry, we have Belgium, yes. Oh, Peter Jan. Good evening, Peter Jan. We have Jacek from Warsaw. Jacek, we met during the studies at Warsaw School of Economics. So it's very nice that some people, familiar people, are coming back to us. From where? Georgia, from Portugal. Great. So we are really going international. Yeah. Probably we won't be capable to display every comments because soon we shall start. But nevertheless, we really recommend you to write your names, who is with us, because later there will be a possibility to receive a certificate of attendance like we did last year with these people who joined us. So that's why it's important to give your remark during this webinars. Martin from Gliwice. Okay, very nice. Okay. So I hope you will slowly be joining and leaving us your names on the chat. But I think it's a high time to start because we are valuing your time that you decided to spend this hour with us. And let's start the first of our webinars from the Robust Quality on the Shop Floor, the 5 webinar series, which in a second I will tell you. Because today we will be talking about daily production readiness. But before we'll start, let me fastly introduce QualityWise to the people who are for the first time with us and never had the opportunity to cooperate with us. QualityWise is a company which is specializing in quality management, specifically in automotive industry. We are supporting our customers with trainings from different areas, aspects of quality management, quality assurance. Also, we are supporting our customers with audit, different requirements, mostly ISO, IATF, but also VDA approach. And so on the system level, process level, potential analysis as well with sourcing activities and consulting activities. If you have some issues on some specific topics and you need some support, you're more than welcome to book a free consultation with us on our website and see how we can support your interests. So this is shortly about QualityWise. So now let me just briefly introduce you to this webinar series. In the left top, you have the QR code for the detailed description of this new webinar series, which we are launching this year. So these webinars are designed in that way that there are 5 consistent stories, yes? And in total, they are creating a kind of the full picture of this, how to assure this robust quality on the shop floor. Because now we are, this year, we will be talking in the operational language, yes? How to make this quality working, yes? Effectively, that our customer can be satisfied and the customer satisfaction will be achieved, yes? Last year, mostly we also concentrated with the before SOP phase, so pre-serial production, yes, the requirements, that kind of things, which later constitute zero defects direction, which is one of the specific requirement for many OEMs, automotive OEMs. So we hope that you will join us during these webinars. The topics I hope are interesting for you. There is a possibility to get a certificate, but certificate is not given to the people who are not participating less than 4 times in this series, because we want you to gain the full picture, the full knowledge of this, what will be said during this webinar. So also, please, you should register on this website after scanning this QR code, because later we would like to send you this certificates. What's more, the people who will be registered will receive additional materials. Definitely this presentation with additional slide, which today will not be presented. And also we presented a checklist for you, how to assure this robust quality on the shop floor. This will be sent with the next newsletter of QualityWise next Wednesday. Okay, so now I think we can start our webinar. And shortly about ourselves. I'm Agata Lewkowska. I am quality management system expert. I specialize in IATF mostly. This is my favorite topic. I love working with QMS, and all my experiences I gained was in the automotive in different areas of this quality management, quality assurance. But as I said, my favorite topic is working with the system, because system is everything and is very complex with different aspects of quality. Chris, 1 sentence about yourself and let's start.
Okay, so I'm Christopher Scott and I'm a quality assurance expert within the automotive industry. I'm also a head of supplier quality in an automotive OEM and held positions of head of quality, lead engineer throughout my journey. I'm an APQP and PPAP specialist. My favorite topic, which is more to do with how do I take the QMS requirements and make it into reality, into the shop floor, working with suppliers, working with OEMs, working with customers and clients specifically, and how to integrate these methodologies into their systems. So again, I like things like problem solving and crisis management. I've dealt with many crises.
So easily you can see I am QMS oriented. Christopher is Shopfloor oriented.
Exactly, Agatha. Exactly.
Okay. Yes, let's start this webinar with asking you a question. Because as you remember, maybe those of you who were participating already with our webinars, we love to hear from you and also learn your experiences. So we would really appreciate if you could say from your experiences, what can cause most quality issues, especially in the production. We would like to verify it maybe with our experiences. Chris, what would you say? What are the most quality issues you have experienced while we are waiting for the answers from our dear participants?
Well, I think the main sort of quality issues I tend to see in production are misalignment. So what should we do when we set things up? Or should we even set things up? Whose job is it to do that? Why should they do that? It's quite common in production, whether that is the production supplier side of it, the operations team. There tends to be a thing of it's not my job, it's not my responsibility, which I see in general. But I'd like to see what the audience, our listeners and people watching the webinar today can add from their personal experience. What sort of issues do they see?
Yes, I will check if we already can see some displays, because here it's Actually, we're giving you the possibility to say from different areas, different
Mm.
aspects, so what you can struggle. First answer is, this is said from Marco, but we have also already the first answer is poorly defined processes. Yes, so this is even the beginning before we'll go to the serial production, I would say. And now, with this answer, we can say that how important is the project management in automotive industry before we will go to the serial production, the validation of the process. Yes, this is important. What else? I see people are coming and they are introducing still. However, we are waiting for your answers from your experiences. Let me see. Lack of error proofing of process. Oh, I love this answer. Yes, error proofing of processes, pokayoke, and misunderstanding or misinterpretations of requirements. Okay, this is really good answer. We have here the requirements and lack of error proofing. Yes, the whole automotive world is built upon error proofing. Yes, error prevention. This is the goal of the IATF. I don't know if you have read the beginning of the IATF standard, but I recommend you to have a look what is written there, because only little of people are are paying attention to this. Poor training of operators. Yes, that can be also a problem on the production with assuring of this quality. SOP, ambiguous. Yes, Crystal, that's true. What else? Competency, error proof. Yeah. First on CAD.
Fits on CAD. So this is the theoretical versus reality. I've worked with Rodney before in the past in an OEM, and he's absolutely
Okay.
right. Absolutely right. Sometimes it's perfect in CAD, but in reality, it cannot be made. So.
We have general statement, lack of quality mindset. We'll be talking about this, how to make this mindset working. Yes, what can make us actually to do this mindset working, and process not followed. Okay, I think we already had some quite interesting answers, straight to the point, I would say, but all of them are correct from different aspects and perspective. Chris, so maybe I will give you the voice. You are the operational specialist. So why daily production readiness matters? What can you tell us about this?
Well, what could I say? I mean, the first point is that most quality issues are created at the start of shift. They don't randomly happen in the middle and then something goes wrong with machines. But most of them start right at the beginning. The next point I'd like to say is that firefighting usually starts with an unstable daily start. It's not consistent, it's not standardized, it's randomly done. That's what I mean by that bullet point. The next point is that IATF 16949 expects controlled, repeatable production conditions. So as I just mentioned, linking into this point, we need to be stable as a process. The next point, and the final point before I come to the key message, is that quality is not inspected. It should be prepared every day. It's not automatic. It's not a given. It needs to be monitored and maintained. So what's the key message, I could say? The key message is if the first part is wrong, the rest of the shift is already lost. You're catching back. You're trying to do a quick root cause analysis. You might use something like QRQC, which is quick response quality control, to try and find out where things went wrong. And most of the time, it starts right at the beginning.
Good. So what to do? How this daily production readiness can be defined, Chris?
Well, what does it mean? It means that production starts only when defined conditions are met. So this is what is the pressure, the temperature, the time. That's what's really important at the beginning. Is it set up the right way it should be, right at the start? The next point is to do with operators, machines, man, material, method, documents. Are they ready and are they aligned? Are they prepared? That needs to be in place before it even starts. Yeah. Control plans. So those who know what a control plan is, for those who don't, it's a part of a 𝐤𝐥𝐥 APQP manual, and there are specific manuals on the control plan, but this is how we do the checks. So are they executed fully? They're not just displayed just because someone in supply quality engineering asked for it. It's a living, breathing document, and this is supposed to be cascaded into the work instructions or standard operating procedures. The last point I'd like to say is that risks are checked before defects are produced. So we check the risk, we understand the risk. This is linked to an FMEA. We know what could go wrong before it goes wrong. It's predictable. So what does it mean? And this is kind of maybe a confusing statement, but what it means is it's not a meeting, it's a control process. For those who's worked in production, in operations, it's not just standing talking about issues. It's saying, are you ready? Is your team leaders ready? Is your operators ready? Are they ready to go with everything prepared? That's what that means.
Mm-hmm. Before we will go further, I have nice comment here from Damian. It was always like this, and it is for sure. So this is always it is. I think in every organization there will be always a person who knows by heart everything or is working very long at the production, and sometimes it's very difficult to persuade this person to to change the way of behavior or even following the modified procedure, yes, process steps. So this is always relevant, I would say, yes, worth to mention about this, yes. So let me ask another question, because we are in automotive world. So we know that definitely here there are some obligations toward the system which are reinforced by IATF 16949. And now, how do you think from your experiences, in which areas we could work here to ensure this daily production readiness? Sometimes this is our experience, what already shall be done, but sometimes when we need some directions, you may find it directly in IATF. And exactly tonight we want to make you aware what you can find there, because firstly you need to follow them because this is mandatory in IATF. I don't believe that you would have an exclusions, as this is not applicable to your business, because they're definitely mandatory connected to Shopfloor. And secondly, it's for your continuous improvement also, and error prevention on the shop floor. So any ideas in which areas we could move each other here to find these requirements? What can be connected to this production readiness?
Let's see who are the suppliers, who are the tier 1 suppliers, and who are the customers. Maybe the ones who are in the chat can maybe explain it from their different perspectives. If you're the customer, you're imposing the requirements on your supply chain. If you're the supplier, you're doing it because 1, you want to be accredited to IATF 16949, and 2, because the customer is probably mandated that you must be accredited to that requirement.
I would give you a hint. You were talking at the very beginning, you were writing on the chat many issues you are struggling with the quality on the shop floor. In this area, will we find any requirements from IATF? It might be difficult for the people who are not system-oriented.
Yes. It's difficult for people who are not considered themselves to be experts, and this is why they're on the webinar, to try and learn more about it. So maybe we should move on because of time, and let's just see from your perspective as an expert, Agatha.
Yes, this is my my beloved perspective of IATF. However, there is also something mentioned by customer-specific requirements. Yes, definitely, but we need to know to which clause this customer-specific requirement is directed, because let me emphasize and repeat you that the customer-specific requirements are those requirements from our beloved OEMs, which are associated with a certain clause. So still it's like that. I love this answer. First part, control. Okay, that's true. So now the only thing where to find this first article inspection, or in other words, like IATF is calling it, first off, last off, what Rista is saying, production process control, monitoring, measuring, and analysis. So general in 9th chapter. TPM, I like it, the machining, control plan, implementation, corrective actions, supplier management. Okay. Agreed quality standards. Yes. Critical to quality. We don't have any requirement critical to quality, or I maybe misunderstood this
No,
abbreviation.
it's more of a link to Six Sigma, and in some cases specific OEM requirements like Jaguar Land Rover. Depends on your OEM. It depends on what they would call that, but it's typically found in Six Sigma.
What else? Clear explained in work instructions. TPM, the machining, yes, the equipment infrastructure. In fact, okay. So I think I displayed all the answers what already we can see, but let me emphasize you starting with this explaining the small star which you have on the top. We will not go through the whole IATF definitely, but in many cases we can always interpret many of the clauses like they are supporting this daily production readiness. But tonight we will indicate you the most important ones, okay? So if you may have a different thinking about this daily production readiness supports, that it might be also correct, but simply from our experiences, we defined the most important tonight, okay? Let me also tell you here, risk analysis, always the whole standard is risk-based thinking. Crystal is saying section 8. Yes, many in section 8. Okay, so let me start from the very basic. It's so basic that you'll find it not even in IATF, but in ISO 9001, and this is production and service provision, okay? This is so general requirement, which is stating that in before we start the production, we need to pay attention to a lot of conditions like documentation, like if we have monitoring and measuring resources, yes, because otherwise we won't be capable to release the production. If we have equipment ready, if we have work instructions, if we have machining ready, yes, if we have competences. This is also connected to validation and verification, especially if in your organization you're working with special processes, yes, so the ones which effects cannot be verified just after creating the value, yes, in this special process. So here, in fact, this general ISO requirement is also one of the top 10 IATF nonconformities around the world, noticed by the certification bodies. So it's really worth to remember about this. Second, what I think it's the most important, control plan. And luckily, you wrote on the chat that control plan is the one which can really assure the production readiness in our shop floor. For the second, connected maybe to the control plan, is verification of job setup. Okay, I don't want to talk now about control plan because probably you will still be talking about this, Chris. I know that you mentioned you want to talk more about this, so I'm not revealing more what is required, but also here with verification of job setup. In my opinion, you need to pay attention to this this point because simply it is also connected to have this information in control plan. But in the clause for control plan, you won't find this. You will find other way around. In the control plan section, you will find that verification of job setup must be present in the control plan. However, in verification of job setup, there is no single word about this. So pay attention not to have a nonconformity. Verification of job setup is extremely important. Why? Because when we are starting the production, we simply need to make sure that everything is prepared. What's more, you need to have records of checking this verification of job setups. And here it is connected also first off, last off. So also something, this was written by you on the chart. So again, extremely important. However, this is not the only place where first off, last off is indicated, okay? Also, what is important in my opinion is error proofing. You can't start production without verification of the of your either challenge part, this is called like it is, to simulate their intended use, okay, that they are working as they were designed for this aim. Yes, and luckily error proofing you mentioned, extremely important, and this is the basis for also for the whole IATF and whole automotive industry, yes, to make this variation reduction in the production. Okay, at the end, what I will tell you is that, because in my opinion, these are 4 crucial. I could speak more, of course, but today we don't have that much time for this, yes? However, let's remember, you need to have evidences. It's not only that you are declaring on the paper, because like, for instance, for error proofing, you need to have a documented process for having error proofings, but it's not about having a procedure, how we are working with error proofing, but that this is working on the shop floor. You can't start production when you will not do verification of job setup, and if this is required on the specific station, workstation, the use of error proofings, you need to verify if they are working by simulating their intended use. Okay, Chris, let's keep going. And now maybe you must have elements of stable production start.
Absolutely. So what's the first thing? The first thing is verified material status. So these are things like it's correct, meaning it's in spec, it's the right one that should be on that build. So if you build different variants, different components, there's a left hand or a right hand, you have all the right parts there. Is it released? Is it the right version, or is it unauthorized material on the shop floor? And this is when you're preparing your production lines, it needs to be the correct one. And is it traceable? Does it have any traceability requirements? Do you need to scan it in your scanning system or your SAP system? Does it have any traceability requirements? So the next one would be confirmed machine conditions. I've mentioned this already, but I'm reiterating the point. The settings, is it set up correctly? Did maintenance set it up correctly, or is that the operator that needs to do it? Parameters, pressure, temperature, time, speed, all of these things. Are there any alarms that are going off that need to be reset and confirmed that they're actually okay and stable? The next point I'd like to say is about available and current documents. These are things like the control plan, the standard operating procedure, or what other people might know as work instructions, as well as standards. I've seen that already within the chat that some people have said, do we have the right quality standards that are on the shop floor? Not everything is an SOP. It could be a one-page document which says this is what the defect is, which is okay, what would be no good for limits, master samples, and so on. And then the final point is something called a defined reaction plan for abnormalities. What does that mean? It means when something goes wrong, something is not normal with the above points, what's your reaction plan? Do you call SQA? Do you call build support or a special team to come and have a look? Do you quarantine the material, or do you do some sort of rework process? It's called a reaction plan. And that's what that means in our language as quality management experts. The final key message I need to give to everyone on this particular topic here on the slide is if one of these elements is missing, production is not ready. They're not ready. And this is the point about who is responsible for quality. Everyone is responsible for quality, and it's everyone's job to make sure all these things are in place.
Yeah, let me just mention you the direction plan according to the requirements, even in control plan, are in for 2 conditions. First, if the product is not conforming, but in many cases I observe in the organizations that the reaction plan is forgetting that they also shall pay attention to the process itself when it is not stable or not capable to produce the pieces. Okay, in these 2 areas we are working with this reaction plan. Okay, so another question for you: what should be in the control plan to ensure quality? So now I did not reveal what is the requirement in the control plan, yes, from the IATF perspective. However, Chris mentioned at the very beginning that there is also, since 2024, and the first revision of the control plan manual issued by IATF. Before, because this is not completely new manual, before control plan was in the APQP manual together, but since that time, 2024, 1st of the March, we have separate manual. We may say that it will be almost 2 years, so I hope you had the opportunity to see what are the changes maybe in the control plan, what is required to have a control plan. Now the question also, supporting question, is the requirements for the IATF control plan the same like in this manual of APQP control plan is defined and described? Because, you need to also be aware that if you are delivering to the German OEMs, they are not using APQP. What
No,
then?
they don't. They don't. They have their own version. So whoever's used to working with the Daimlers, the Mercedes or the Volkswagen group, it is different. It's not the same. So let's see.
So where are the audit criteria? Okay, we have here already the first marked special characteristics, okay values of measured characteristics, documents describing the control method. Yes, control method, in fact, the keyword. Reaction plan and person responsible safe launch. Oh, this is exactly two very important aspects of the changes which the new edition of the first edition actually of the control plan according to 𝐤𝐥𝐥 was introducing. Yes, you may find on the QualityWise YouTube channel already a webinar which we had in 2024, I think, Chris, when it was completely new edition of this control plan, where in which we are discussing what is changing, how to interpret the requirements, what is safe launch. So I recommend you highly to find this webinar in our YouTube and simply see what was said about the new edition. RISTA. Process information, characteristics to control, specific and tolerances, measurement and control methods, sample size and frequency, roles and responsibilities, and reaction, reaction plan, probably, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, Rista, you said the whole headings of this what is in the control plan. So this is this is okay. So I think let's keep going because many of you probably is quite acquainted with in the control plan because this is, let's be frank, very basic document for the quality on the shop floor. Okay, let me go further. Control plans from paper to practice. What is important here, Chris?
Yeah, so operators understand what to check and why. So a lot of you have listed that, but we're breaking it down really simply. If you know the headings, great. There was one that was missing that I could see, which is to do with error proofing, just a point of reference. Usually the control plan will specify whether that part of the process has error proofing, if it does or if it doesn't, but that's an interesting point. The next point I'd like to say is about checks are done at the design defined frequency. Is it first, middle, last? Is it first, last? Is it 1 in 5? Is it 100%? Some of those are based on statistical risk on the FMEAs. That's what the input is to tell you and determine the frequency of checks. And sometimes it's defined by a regulation or it's defined by the customer. The customer is telling you what the frequency must be. For example, if you have a safety critical characteristic, but you don't achieve a CP/CPK value, you will have to check it 100%. Depends on your process stability and capability. The next point I want to say is about traceability of records and recording of documents. So this is the results are recorded and evaluated. There's no point in recording something and filing it away. It's about, is it checked? What does it tell us? Is it in spec, in control? The final point is about deviations. Do they trigger immediate reaction, or do you wait 5 days? Oh, I'll check in 5 days' time. No, it's about fixing it right now, fixing the problem, stopping the line, improving the process, controlling the deviations and removing them. So the key message is that a control plan is only valid when it's executed. It's not a document just for PPAP. Submit to the customer last minute. It's a living, breathing control method to tell you all of the things I've just listed on this slide.
Before we go further, I really loved this comment from Peter Jan. Measures to control risks from the FMEA. This is exactly how does this should work. First, FMEA, when we define the potential risks on the shop floor, now with new approach in different 5M areas even, And later, we are proposing countermeasures, so the preventive and detective control methods, which later must be cascaded, taken to the control plan simply. And in many organizations, I see that there is an inconsistency because someone else was creating FMEA, mostly engineering team, and quality later is responsible for control plans. Sometimes even when we have remote location design and development centers, the information is hardly cascaded between the teams. So sometimes I really observe this as a weak point, but this is really valuable comment, and please learn from this experience that first FMEA and later control plan. Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk about the operators, Chris.
Yeah, operator readiness. What does that mean? It means essentially that the correct training for the operation, are they trained to do instruction and do they follow the instruction? The next point, which has been mentioned a few times, is about critical characteristics. What is their awareness? What are they aware of? Do they know that they work on a process or a station which either creates or controls a critical characteristic? This could be a CC, safety critical, or legislation, regulation, or it could be a major characteristic or significant characteristic. What is their involvement or their awareness of it? The next point is, again, it's already been mentioned, but it's reaffirming and reinforcing your view and your knowledge, the knowledge of the first off check. The first off needs to be confirmed by operations and by quality to confirm that it's okay. You can't start the process without knowing that it's in specification to the drawing. The next point is understanding escalation rules. Now, how many operators are fearful of telling someone something is wrong or something is no good? No, it's about being transparent. Everyone is responsible for quality, even the operator. It's still in their control. And then finally, the final point I need to add is to do with the awareness of recent issues. If the previous shift or the previous operator was on that station or earlier in the week, they knew there was a problem and the problem reoccurs, they need to be aware of the most recent issues. And sometimes these are things called quality alerts or 1-point lessons that you would do on the shop floor to tell them. Sometimes it's called a toolbox talk. You tell them, we've had a problem, or it happened in our sister plant, it happened in another factory, it could happen here, what are we doing? It's about horizontal deployment and lessons learned. So it's really important.
Let me also tell you from my perspective from the system, what could be the clauses related to the operators, yes? Of course, today will not reveal in details what is in each specific clause with the additional materials which will be sent next week on Wednesday. I will explain this. I will give you more elaboration on these requirements. However, tonight we don't have that much time. Yes, so that's why again, scan this QR code and put your name on the list to get this presentation after all. This what was already a few times said, also important from your experiences, what can be missing is simply a competences which are coming from ISO 9001, yes? They need to be defined for the people performing specific tasks in relevance to the quality management system, also with the documented information. IATF is saying in the supplemental that, of course, here we need to add awareness, and Chris already said about this. So you can see from the system perspective, mandatory perspective, if we, from our own motivation, we are not promoting this awareness among people, we are forced by the standard. Another one, what is my opinion important, is competence on the job training. And here, let me say explicitly, if you have agency workers in your organization, they are treated the same. They must be treated, they shall be treated the same as all the permanently employed employees. Okay, no difference, the same trainings, the same competences, yes, the same responsibilities for the quality, in fact. Okay, what else? Awareness itself. This is coming from ISO 9001. So here we are talking about quality policy, quality goals, for instance, and the contribution to the quality management system, yes, to the quality. And what would be the consequences of not meeting the requirements? Here we have more. in IATF. Here we will find also customer perspective. What will happen if we don't know the customer requirements? Of course, in detail, the operator will not know these requirements, but at least, even from my recent audits, I may tell you what I ask. I ask, what are this marking on this working station, like SC? What does this mean? And the answers were mostly okay, like it should be. Special characteristics, this is important for the customer. Yes, what is the implication if we will not meet this requirement? This is a classic example if you are especially working with special characteristics, okay? So from my perspective, these clauses related to the operators are extremely important. You need to assure this, yes. Many of them, like awareness, might be supported by the HR process or from the system perspective of the QMS, yes. Maybe on the job training is also while onboarding. This might be a good occasion to really introduce a lot of topics, but let's remember maybe to periodically review the state of the knowledge among the operators. But this periodical review is not the requirement, okay? This is a best practice, what I would say. Okay. The risks connected to documentation. Did you struggle with the risks connected with the documentation on the shop floor? And what was this risk about? We are
I would like to add from my side, when I audit suppliers as an OEM, or if I audit the supplier as a consultant, one way or another, the business, I can easily find low-hanging fruit when it comes to documentation on the shop floor. Very, very easy one to find. You can quickly check a drawing. What does it say on the shop floor? Check an SOP in the system on the database. What does it say on the shop floor? Really easy thing to find. So a little bit of a hint for the people who are thinking about this. If you're not very close to the shop floor and you're part of the QMS, or you deal with drawings, or you deal with control plans, but let's see what you think when it comes to documentation on the shop floor.
Oh, so now maybe a specific question. Who of you experienced missing marking of special characteristic in the working instruction, for instance?
Well, I can put my hand up because that happens all the time. So all the time with suppliers, unfortunately.
Yes, this is classic. Very low-hanging fruit. Extremely, say. Do we have any answer? In the yeah.
We're starting to get answers now.
Yes. Out of date, of course. Not the most recent version, similar. Must be understandable by the operator, always, yes. Real simple and simple of complaint. And we have also simplify for the operator so that they understand the objective of CC, critical to quality, I mean, yes. And we have also here about the characteristics for special processes. What are the recommendations? Okay, we will later maybe discuss about this because this is not relevant to this topic. At the end, we'll answer. What else do we see? DRF. What is DRF?
So I'm going to address that maybe directly because it's specific Lotus-ism. So Rodney, maybe you can reply afterwards in the chat. But it's, from my memory, when I worked for Lotus, it's to do with concessions, build deviations. That's specific, but it's very specific to Lotus. But other companies call them, either a concession or a build deviation or a BDF. Different companies call them different things. But maybe, Rodney, if you can put in the chat what that means from the Lotus speak.
Okay. Yeah, this is even called concession, waiver.
Yeah, different ways of saying it, yeah.
Okay, good. So you have the impression what could be the mistakes, but okay. So here, the typical risks in connection to the documents. Chris, you're shop floor expert.
Yeah, so risk number one, very, very common, is old work instructions or SOPs. Now, SOPs isn't just meaning start of production, it means standard operating procedures for those who aren't aware. It's not the same thing as job one. So that's number one. Number two is different versions of paper, so an actual physical hard copy versus the digital copy in the system, and that can be a release issue. And I've seen some really good responses from Rodney, from Olwyn, from Claire, very bang on, straight to the point. And number three is to do with the missing reaction plans, significant or special characteristics, as well as your protective personal equipment requirements for the job. For safety, what should be on there, to keep the person safe when they're doing the operation. So they're the main three very easy things to find that are not on the documentation when it comes to the shop floor.
The risk number two, let me elaborate a little bit or ask you, how many of you have experienced that their handwriting changes on the documentation? This is classic. Later during the audit, of course, this is again something which auditors' eyes are firstly seeing this thing, not the content of the working instructions itself, but the change. Yes,
I'll give you an example of that from personal experience. So I once audited a supplier. I'll not say when and where or who it was for confidentiality reasons, but I audited a supplier and they were making a product, and the operator wrote something on the drawing by hand. And they thought there was no issue with that. And some of you in the chat might be thinking, well, why would they do that? And when you speak to the operator, they said it's because the drawing doesn't have the information. It's unclear. It's ambiguous, which tells you that the engineering department has a disconnect between what the operator needs. The operator was very, very capable, but it's an uncontrolled change of information. It's unofficial. That's the point.
Okay. Again, low-hanging fruit on
very low-hanging fruit. Very.
Okay. So what we have here in connection to the documentation, of course, I see here also a good comment from Rista: traceability gaps, outdated revision, control failures, paper-based inefficiencies, non-compliant process, that kind of things. Here also good comment: not updated with the engineering changes.
Exactly.
Expired documents or not updated as well. Yes. Classic issues. Yes. Generally, dear ladies and gentlemen, the ISO 9001 chapter 7.5 dedicated to document management is here playing the main role. However, let's be honest, this is not relevant that much for the people on the shop floor. I mean, who are not in charge of issuing the documentations, for instance, but this is relevant for everyone who is in charge of the document creation, updating, distribution, taking the obsolete version from the working stations. This is extremely important. But in IATF, there is also additional one, which is connected to standardized work, this operator instructions and visual standards. No one on the chat wrote that requirements in fully, because however there are some there needs to be understandable by the people, and this was written on the chat. However, let's remember that these requirements here in IATF are stating, for instance, you need to have even the information about personal protective equipment. Yes, this is mandatory. When I'm auditing, I'm saying if this is with pictograms, if there are no pictograms, for instance, which would be sufficient, then I'm looking for a text. Yes, but it must be present. What about the language? We are working mostly in the international environments, and people shall have the documentation translated for their national language? No, not at all. This requirement here is saying that the work instructions must be understood by the people working based on those work instructions. So you need to make sure that people understand what is inside. They are capable to communicate in the language of this working instruction, and this is very easy to understand. We have also here a comment with photos and easy understand. So easy understand, also legible. Yes. Photos not as the requirement. However, in automotive world, we want to have fast instructions. Yes, so mostly pictures are playing here a crucial role. Yes, also to show how on this working station the work shall be performed. Yes, so in my opinion, these are the most important. But as I said, 7.5 is actually everything here. So might be too much. And there's one thing from 7.5, record retention from IATF. ISO is not saying about this, but you need to have record retention policy. This means that if you are doing any records on the shop floor, connected, for instance, of the first of article inspection, if it is connected with verification of job setup, TPMs, 5S, whatever, any records, you need to define how much time this will be stored on your disk or in your archive in the physical paper format. Yes, this is sometimes difficult because this is also connected to customer specific requirements. And easy thing is with German market, because there is VDA1 manual, which is quite demanding since few years, because it increased significantly to 30 years storing of some documents, okay, especially those which are confirming that we are producing according to the requirements and we are releasing this product based on the evidences that the requirements are met. Okay, pay attention. Record retention policy must be as documented information in our organizations. Okay, Chris, this is for man equipment.
Yeah, so let's talk about this, about before production, before you start. So this is the correct tooling and fixtures are installed. So what do you mean by tooling? Tooling are things like injection molds, cavities, dies. Fixtures are like assembly fixtures, welding fixtures. We're not talking about checking fixtures. We're talking about a fixture that helps you produce or assemble the component, not necessarily measure the component. That is a different type of fixture. The next one would be the machine parameters are verified. So these are things like your temperature, your cooling time, holding time, pressure, all of these things that contribute towards a good component. The next one is the error messages and the alarms. So these are your warnings. They say something is wrong, or there's a parameter that's out of specification. It's hit the upper control limit or the lower control limit, so it needs to be corrected to make sure the process is stable. And then we're looking at measurement equipment is available and calibrated. Now, I audited a supplier recently where they had a brand new microscope on their shop floor. It was not in their calibration database. It was fine to use in terms of it wasn't damaged, but it was missing the link between the calibration register. So it should not have been on the shop floor. Even though it was brand new, even though it was better than the old one, technically, it is not conforming to the standard. So what is the key message? The key message is that we need to focus on what changed since the last shift, previous shift. That could have been in the morning, the afternoon, a week ago, whenever you did that batch production, and what failed yesterday. It's about looking back and correcting it going forward. That's the whole point.
Here we have also some comments, valuable comments like measurement tools. Definitely, this is also important. You remember what I started at the very beginning as the first requirement, coming back from the QMS 851 from ISO 9001, which is stating about the process controls as well and infrastructure needed. Otherwise, you won't be capable to start your production because you will not have this measuring devices tools which will prove you are meeting the requirements. Okay, and what's more, we must apply MSA. Yes, MSA will be next webinar topic, so quite interesting, I believe. Yes, MSA is another big topic. Yeah, like that. Okay. Honestly, this was the whole daily production setup. What should be to assure the quality on the shop floor. We hope you enjoyed this, what we shared with you tonight. As we said, everyone from different perspective may have different approach, have think on their mind different requirements. Yes, but we all must agree that this, what was tonight said, is still the basis for assuring the robust quality on the shop floor. We have still some minutes, so we are happy to answer any of your questions connected to today's topic or general quality management, if you wish. I will have a look on the chat if we had also some questions left which we did not address. Oh, this one. When these are characteristics of special process, what is the recommendation for addressing them in the control plan? Special processes like welding, for instance, because I don't know if we are talking about special process characteristics like special characteristics itself or those special processes. Chris, maybe you?
Yeah, I could probably answer that. So it depends on which way you're addressing the question. If you're addressing it from the CQI perspective of special processes like welding, it all depends on what the weld is for. Is the weld for a safety critical joint? Is it structural? If that weld fails when you do your DFME or process FME review, is a risk analysis. Could it kill someone or could it injure someone is the question. If the answer is yes, then it will definitely need some sort of CC next to it, and it will need robust checks, either destructive and non-destructive testing, to prove that the weld is a first off, mid off, last off based on a certain frequency is okay. Now, in some cases, if we're talking about welding, because that's one of my previous things I used to do in my career, not everything needs a tear down. Sometimes it can be done non-destructively through X-raying, CT scanning, MRI, or it could be done through dye penetrance. All depends on your process stability of the settings. If you're making batteries, for example, there's different ways to weld a flex, HV flex onto a battery. You can either do it by fusion welding, it could be done by ultrasonics, it could be done by lasers. Each process has its own risk. So it depends on what that question means. If it's to do with the fact it's a special process, fine, but not all special processes leads to special characteristics. It depends on what the product is doing. What is its intent? Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think also what I would add is that when we are talking about special processes, definitely in the working station, when the welding is done, you will not never verify this. With special processes, it's by the validation, for instance, mostly, which will be done in the subsequent operations. Yes, subsequent operations are actually verifying the quality of this process. Okay, what else we had?
We got one from Claire. Yeah.
Claire. This 30-year record retention requirement, what needs to be put in place to ensure electronic records are still accessible? Well, are we talking here about the servers capacity to store for 30 years? Definitely, you need to consider how the data will be accessible after 30 years. For instance, like CDs are not actually popular and I don't want to say in use anymore. However, in 30 years, we don't know how this will change the storing of data, how it will be saved, in which format. But nevertheless, according maybe to the current state of the art, you need to still be capable to read these documents. Yes, let's remember that sometimes in case of traceability and the statutory and regulatory requirements, you need to maybe have a definition of the time how fast you need to access some data. Yes, and this 30 years record retention, it's really quite a long time. And let's remember that this is relevant mostly to the verification to prove that the requirements are met. Yes, on the shop floor when you're releasing the production. This is also connected with the design and development documentation, PPAP here. Yes, that kind of requirements.
I'll probably elaborate further on that one. If you're fortunate or unfortunate enough to have that requirement of VDA and the German OEMs, why do you think they've done that? They've done that because of things like Dieselgate, because of product recalls, because they want to know that the product that was made 30 years ago is definitely conforming to the statutory and regulatory requirements, as well as any risk to life or injury. So the state of the art is always changing. you'll probably see things like Amazon Web Services breaking, or going down, servers going down globally. A lot of OEMs have their own databases on site, and when I used to work for Nissan, they had their own data center on site, which has fire suppression, all of the things. They have backup service for backup service for backup service. It all depends on the scale of your organization. Now, for some suppliers in this webinar today, you're going to think that's going to cost a lot of money. It might do, probably will, but I can tell you what costs you a lot more money is a product recall. And we're talking not hundreds of thousands, we're talking millions when it goes wrong.
Thank you, Jose, for reminding us that GM, yes, GM is exceptional one. GM has even 50 years for some. I don't remember exactly which one, if this is connected with the people competencies, this 50 years, but definitely I remember because in my portfolio, I had GM, and in my record retention policy, yes, it was exceptional, 50 years. 30 years, we have been talking only in terms of VDA 1 manual, yes, and the German market, and this VDA 1 is also in the customer requirements, like even Volkswagen. Volkswagen is also exceptional because always he requires recent state of the art of the manual. So this VDA 1 was updated like 2-3 years maybe ago. So this means that this change from 15 to 30 years is not I don't want to say recent because it's already a few years, yes, but this is after the change of this manual. Okay. How to link FMEA control plan and to working instructions for critical characteristics. Christy?
Briefly, without giving away too much trade secrets. So what I would say is, if you want to know in detail, obviously you're more than welcome to reach out to 𝐤𝐥𝐿 or myself. I specialize in that subject. But what I can say is that it starts with a prototype failure mode effect analysis, where you start there. You're looking at a process flow diagram before you start to create the control plan. This is all the prototype stage. And then you're looking at the work instruction, and what is the definition of a work instruction. I say this in our podcast. I say this in many of our webinars, is that it's the best method to teach the job. It ensures safety, quality, and efficiency of the operation. And on the work instructions, it needs to define what a critical characteristic is if it's generated from the FMEA. So let me give you an example quickly. If I have a brake disc, and the brake disc has a porosity requirement, and the requirement in the drawing says there shall be no porosity, what happens if a brake disc has porosity inside of a certain level? It will break, it will fracture, and it means you have a loss of braking in a car or any vehicle that has brakes. And if the brake fails, it could lead to someone crashing or dying or killing someone as a passenger or a pedestrian. How do you link that into the work instruction? It will say something like, do not drop the parts, because if it's fractured, that can cause a shock, which then fails the critical characteristic. Or if you're in the foundry side of it, when they cast the brake disc itself, again, you're checking afterwards, because that's a special process. Casting is a special process. You have to check afterwards to see what is the porosity level.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for answering this question.
Very detailed, but
I think we are almost out of time. We value your time, your evening here in Europe, at least. So definitely we don't want to maybe discuss more. If there will be some questions, we'll try to answer on the, like I see here, there are coming still like on LinkedIn. So we'll try to answer just in the chat. At the end, we want to invite you to visit our QualityWise blog and QualityWise podcast. Every Wednesday, we are issuing a new episode. So please go and try if this is something which will be also an interesting for you, where we are sharing the knowledge from my experience and Christopher's experience. We are also expecting some guests in our podcast, and especially if you are also feeling like you're subject matter experts, you're more than welcome to join us to take part in our podcast. Nevertheless, you will find all the information, like even blog and this podcast, ebooks to download, and information about this webinar on the tab under resources on our website. At the end, let me again remind you that we are meeting in 1 month on 11th March And it will be a really interesting topic, SPC and MSA, which are always causing a lot of questions. So this might be very interesting webinar, I hope so. Nevertheless, let me remind in this moment that still, if you did not put your name on the chat, because maybe you were later than we started, please do so, because and we would like to know who was tonight with us to later issue the certificate of attendance and send you also the materials, yes, if you registered to the webinars on our website here, where you have QR code to scan. Okay, I think that's all for tonight. We wish you really wonderful evening, or the day, like in Canada. From our side, we want to really thank you for being with us, for sharing your experiences on the chat as well. And we hope to meet with you in 1 month. Thank you.